I was watering the same piece of grass for about 5 minutes when Claire Flowers caught me looking at her. That sounds worse than it was. Or maybe exactly as bad. I was 36, recently divorced, and living in the house I had kept because stability mattered. That was what I told people. My brother, my parents, the lawyer, the few friends who still asked how I was doing. The truth was, the house outside Raleigh had become a place where I could disappear without anyone noticing. Work, dinner, laundry, lawn, sleep, Saturday morning grocery run, Sunday afternoon pretending to fix something in the garage. I was not miserable. That almost made it worse. My life was quiet in a way that looked healthy from the outside, but inside it felt like I had shut every window and forgotten where I put the key. Then Claire moved into the blue house next door. I learned her name from the mailbox before I learned it from her. Claire Flowers, black letters on a fresh white label. She showed up with moving boxes, paint on her jeans, a golden retriever named Max, and the kind of laugh that made our sleepy little street feel like somebody had opened a door. The first time we spoke, Max had gotten into my hostas and was standing there with dirt on his nose like he had discovered buried treasure. "I'm so sorry," she said, jogging through the gap in the hedge. "He has the manners of a raccoon with good hair." Max wagged his tail and sneezed on my shoe. I said, "He seems proud of himself." "He usually is." After that, there were normal neighbor things. She asked which bin went out on recycling day. I told her the blue one, unless the city decided to skip us for no reason, which happened more than it should. Her porch light flickered, and I mentioned it because I had noticed. She thanked me and said the whole house had elderly bones and dramatic moods. One Saturday, she painted her front door deep green. Not bright, not fancy, just this calm, rich green that somehow made the whole blue house look more awake. I told myself I only noticed because it was right next door. That was a lie. I noticed her coffee on the porch steps in the morning. I noticed the stack of books she carried inside like they were difficult relatives. I noticed the way she talked to Max as if he were a roommate who owed rent. I noticed when she laughed on the phone and when she got quiet after. I noticed too much, and every time I caught myself doing it, I acted like I was just checking the weather. Then came that hot Thursday evening. I was in my yard with the hose, doing the responsible homeowner thing, while Claire stood on her back patio trying to hang string lights along the edge of the fence. She had one end of the cord over her shoulder, a little pack of zip ties in her mouth, and her hair twisted up in a clip that looked like it was losing a fight. Max was sitting directly on the extension cord, not beside it, on it, like he had captured it in battle. Claire tugged once. Max did not move. "Max," she said, around the zip ties, "you are not helping." He looked at her with great concern and stayed exactly where he was. I should have turned away. I should have watered the shrubs or gone inside, or done literally anything besides stand there holding a hose like a man watching a neighborhood documentary. But she was trying not to laugh, and there was paint on one knee of her jeans, and the evening sun was hitting the side of her face. I looked longer than I meant to. Then she turned. Her eyes landed right on me. Then they dropped to the water pooling around my sneakers. "If you want to look," she called across the fence, "just ask." My hand tightened on the hose nozzle, and I sprayed my own ankle. Cold water soaked through my sock. Claire's mouth curved. I tried to recover with dignity, which was difficult because my left shoe was making a sound like wet bread. "I was checking whether you needed help," I said. "With the lights?" she said. "Or with your staring problem?" I looked down at the hose, then back at her. The staring problem appears chronic. The lights seem more fixable. She laughed then, not mean, not sharp. Warm, like she was enjoying my embarrassment but not trying to hurt me with it. "Fine," she said. "Come help before Max starts charging rent on the cord." I turned off the hose, wiped my hand on my shorts, and walked over through the side gate. Max greeted me like we had served together. For the next hour, I held the ladder while Claire climbed 2 steps higher than I liked. She called me careful. I called her reckless. She said reckless people did not use zip ties. I untangled cords while Max tried to steal one from my pocket. Claire swatted him lightly with an empty cardboard sleeve and said, "No, we do not eat the infrastructure." At one point, she leaned down from the ladder and handed me the end of the lights. Her fingers brushed mine. It was nothing. It was barely a second. Still, I noticed. Of course I noticed. "You always this tense?" she asked. "I'm holding a ladder. I'm 2 feet off the ground. You say that like 2 feet can't ruin a Thursday." She looked down at me, smiling. "You really do have a careful face. I've been told I have a tired face." "That too." I laughed before I could stop myself. Surprised me. Not because she was funny, though she was, but because it came out easily. I had gotten used to measuring my reactions before I let them show. We worked until the last strand was clipped along the patio beam. Claire stepped down, brushed her hands together, and pointed at the outlet. "Moment of truth," she said. I plugged the cord in. The bulbs blinked once, then warmed into a soft golden glow over her patio. The blue house, the green door, the messy boxes still stacked by the back wall, Max's ridiculous proud face. All of it looked different under that light. Less temporary, less lonely. Claire stood beside me, close enough that I could smell lemon soap and summer heat. She looked up at the lights. "Not bad, Morrison. You know my last name?" "Mailbox," she said. "Same way you learned mine." I felt caught again, but she did not make it cruel. Then she turned her head and studied me for a second. "Are you always this careful?" The question landed harder than it should have. I could have joked. I almost did. But the lights were on. Max was lying across both of our feet like a furry roadblock, and Claire Flowers had this way of asking things like she actually expected an answer. So I said, "Depends what I'm trying not to break." Her smile softened, but it did not disappear. "For the record," she said, quieter now, "I'm not made of glass." I did not know what to say to that. I just looked at her, and for once I did not pretend I was looking at anything else. Claire nodded toward the cooler by the patio door. "I've got beer," she said. "Unless you need to go home and dry your tragic little sock." I should have gone home. Instead, I said, "1 beer sounds safe enough." Claire lifted an eyebrow. "Careful," she said. That sounded dangerously optimistic. I knew I should go home after that first beer. That was the reasonable thing to do. Neighbor helps neighbor hang string lights. Neighbor accepts 1 drink. Neighbor says good night before anything starts feeling like a scene from a life he does not know how to handle anymore. But Claire handed me the bottle, twisted the cap off with the edge of her patio table like she had done it 100 times, and Max dropped himself across both our feet with a tired grunt. So I stayed. The patio looked better than it had any right to. The lights gave everything a warm, easy glow. The half-empty boxes against the wall did not look like evidence of a life in pieces anymore. They looked like someone had arrived and had plans. Claire sat in one of the folding chairs and pointed at the other. "Sit, Morrison. You earned it. Barely." "I Saturday barely?" "You fought 1 chord for 20 minutes. It was tangled. It was emotionally tangled." Max lifted his head like he agreed, then put it back down on my shoe. I looked at him. "Your dog has claimed me. He does that. It's how he builds his legal case." "For what?" "Half your property and full access to snacks." I laughed, and Claire smiled like she was pleased with herself but trying not to show too much of it. For a few minutes we talked about nothing heavy. The lights, the neighborhood, Mrs. Goldberg 2 houses down, who apparently had already told Claire which lawns were going downhill and which couples were not fooling anybody. Claire said she had learned more about the street in 10 minutes with Mrs. Goldberg than a detective could learn in a month. "She told me you're quiet," Claire said. "That sounds polite." She said it with concern. "That sounds accurate." Claire took a sip of her beer and watched me over the bottle. "Are you quiet?" "I guess." "No, that's an answer people give when they don't want to answer." I looked at the string lights because they were easier than her eyes. "I'm more careful than I used to be." "There's that word again. You asked if I was always careful. And you gave me that line about trying not to break things." "It wasn't a line." "I know," she said. That stopped me. She leaned back in her chair, one knee tucked under her, looking comfortable in a way that made me feel even more aware of myself. "So what are you trying not to break, Jake?" It was the first time she used my first name. I rubbed the label on the bottle with my thumb. "Mostly my own peace, I guess." That sounds like a divorced man answer. I looked at her then. She did not look sorry for saying it. She also did not look like she had meant to jab me. Just direct. Like she had seen the ring mark that was no longer on my hand, the way people do. "Yeah," I said. "Divorced. About a year now." Bad. I thought about that. People always wanted one clean sentence. Bad. Ugly. Mutual. Complicated. Like a marriage could be folded into a label and stored away. "Not loud," I said. That was the worst part. There wasn't one big blow-up. No dramatic scene. Just a lot of disappointment that kept getting smaller and colder until it was everywhere. We got good at not saying things. Then we got good at not needing to. Claire did not interrupt. I kept going even though I had not planned to. By the end, I think we were both just living near the memory of what we used to be. Same house, same bed, same bills. But the marriage had already left before either of us said it out loud. Claire looked down at Max and scratched behind his ear with her bare foot. "That's a rough kind of ending." "Yeah. You kept the house?" I told myself stability mattered. And it did. I looked toward my yard, dark now except for the porch light. But it also made it easy to hide. Claire nodded slowly, like that made sense to her in a way I wished it did not. "My almost husband hated this kind of honesty," she said. I turned back. "Almost husband. Former fiancé, if we're using the clean version. Do you prefer the messy version?" She gave a short laugh. "I left before the wedding. 3 months before. Venue booked, dress bought, deposits scattered all over North Carolina like little financial landmines." Ouch. Delayed self-respect with a deposit attached. I laughed before I could stop myself, and she did too, but hers faded first. "I knew," she said. "Not all at once. That would have been easier. I just kept realizing I was carrying the relationship by myself and calling it commitment. He liked the idea of us more than me. The version of me that made sense beside him. The woman in the photo. The woman who smiled correctly at dinners. I did not say anything. I had learned there were moments where trying to help too fast only made a person feel handled. Claire glanced at me. After I left, people treated me like I had cracked down the middle. Soft voices. Careful pauses. That face people make when they're trying to be kind but also enjoying the drama a little. "I know that face. I hated it," she said. "I hated feeling like everyone was responding to the headline instead of the woman sitting in front of them." The lights hummed softly above us. Somewhere down the street, a car door closed. "That's what I meant earlier," she said. "I'm not made of glass. I didn't think you were." "No," she said. "But you are doing a version of it." I sat still. Claire tilted her head. "You're very aware of me." My mouth went dry. "And before you panic," she added, "I'm not offended." I wasn't. "You were absolutely about to panic." I looked down at Max. "Your witness is asleep." He saw enough. I breathed out a laugh, but my chest had gone tight. Claire leaned forward, elbows on her knees. "You notice me. Then you act like noticing me is something you need to dress up as good manners." "That's not exactly." "Jake." There it was again. My name, simple and steady. I stopped talking. She held my eyes. "Do you stare because you find me attractive? Or because you're trying hard not to?" I could have lied. I could have made a joke. I could have picked up my empty bottle and said it was late. Instead, for the first time in a long time, I gave someone the truth without sanding down the edges. Both. Claire did not smile right away. She just looked at me. I kept going because stopping felt worse. "I'm attracted to you, obviously. Painfully obviously based on the sprinkler incident." That got a small smile. "But I'm also scared," I said. "I'm divorced. You're rebuilding. We're neighbors, which is either convenient or a terrible idea depending on the day. And I'm tired, Claire. I'm tired of wanting something good and immediately making a list of all the ways it could go wrong. Her expression shifted, not softer exactly, but closer. I believe you, she said. I nodded, not sure if that helped or made it harder. But, she added, I am not accepting your application for permanent emotional retirement. I laughed, surprised again. Is there an appeal process? No. Harsh. Efficient. Max chose that moment to lift his head and sneeze directly against the leg of my shorts. Claire covered her mouth. I looked down. That felt personal. He's very sensitive to unresolved tension. Apparently he handles it with fluids. She laughed then, fully, and the pressure between us loosened without disappearing. That was the strange part. The tension stayed, but it stopped feeling like danger. It felt like something standing at the edge of the patio, waiting to see if we were brave enough to invite it closer. Claire reached down and rubbed Max's neck. Maybe he only delayed the inevitable. I looked at her under those lights we had just hung together, with my wet sock finally drying and my careful life sitting somewhere on the other side of the fence. Maybe, I said, and for once, I did not try to sound safer than I felt. The next morning, I walked outside with coffee in one hand and my keys in the other, and I saw Claire sitting on her front steps like she had been there for a while. Max was beside her with his chin on her knee. That dog usually treated morning like a festival, but even he seemed quiet. Claire had a mug in both hands, and she was staring across the street at nothing. I slowed down by my mailbox. Morning, I called. She looked over, and for a second I saw the version of her from the night before, under the lights, teasing me like she had known me longer than she had. Then it slipped a little. Morning, Morrison. I lifted my coffee. How's the emotional support criminal? Max's tail thumped once. He's been demoted to assistant criminal, she said. He ate a paint roller cover at 6:15. That seems ambitious. He has goals. I smiled and started toward my car. That was when the silver SUV turned onto our street. I did not know the vehicle, but I knew something had changed before it even parked. Claire's shoulders went tight. Max lifted his head. The SUV rolled to the curb in front of the blue house, clean and polished and quiet, like it had never had a fast food wrapper on the floor in its life. A man got out carrying a cardboard box. He was tall, maybe my age, maybe a little older, wearing a pressed shirt and sunglasses expensive enough to look rude. Everything about him seemed arranged. His hair, his watch, his calm, like he had practiced being seen. Claire stood. Morning, Claire, he said. Not warm, not angry, just familiar in a way that made my stomach tighten. Nathan, she said. So that was him. I stayed by my mailbox, pretending to look through envelopes that had not arrived yet. It was a bad performance, but no one stopped me. Nathan carried the box up the walk and glanced at the house, the porch, the green door, the paint tray still sitting near the side rail. This is farther out than I pictured, he said. Claire crossed her arms. You didn't need to picture it. I was just saying. It's a long way to move for a clean break. You brought the box? He looked down at it like he had forgotten it was there. Storage unit. Found a few things. Thought you'd want them. You can leave it by the steps. He did not leave it by the steps. Instead, he held it and looked past her into the house. You know, everyone's been asking about you. I doubt everyone has. People care. Claire's face stayed steady. People can care from a distance. Nathan smiled, but it did not reach anything real. You're still doing that. Doing what? Acting like none of it mattered. That was when I moved. Not much. Just from my mailbox to the edge of my driveway, coffee still in hand. Close enough that Claire could see me. Far enough that I was not stepping into the middle of something that was hers. Nathan noticed me. His eyes flicked over, measured me, dismissed me, then came back again when I did not look away. Claire saw me too. For one small second, her expression changed. Not relief exactly. More like she had found the floor under her feet. Then she turned back to Nathan. You didn't bring that box because you thought I needed it, she said. Write in the comments. Was Claire right to call Nathan out on the porch? Or should she have just taken the box and avoided reopening the past? His jaw shifted. You brought it because you wanted to see the house, she continued. You wanted to see if I looked sorry, or lonely, or messy enough to make you feel right. Claire. No. You came to measure how far I got without you. The street went very still. Nathan lowered his voice. That's not fair. She took the box from his hands. He let her have it, but slowly, like even that was a favor. Claire held it against her hip. I got far enough. He looked at her for another moment. Then at me. Then back at her. This version of you is new, he said. No, she said. This version just stopped explaining herself to you. Nathan gave a small laugh, the kind people use when they do not want to show they have been hit. Then he put his sunglasses back on, walked to the SUV, and drove away without another word. Claire stood there until he turned off our street. I waited. I wanted to say something useful, but every sentence that came to mind sounded too big, too clean, or too much like a man trying to become important in a moment that did not belong to him. So I said, that box looks annoying. Claire looked at me. Then she laughed once, tired but real. It is extremely annoying. Max barked at the empty street like he had handled everything. Claire shook her head. You want to walk? With you or the assistant criminal? Both. He needs to believe he has a job. I set my coffee on my porch rail and met them on the sidewalk. We walked without talking for the first block. Max sniffed every mailbox like he was checking identification. At the corner, Claire said, You didn't jump in. You didn't ask me to. She glanced at me. Most men don't wait for that. I'm not most men. I'm not giving you a medal yet. Understood. She smiled faintly, then looked ahead. Nathan used to do that. Step in. Answer for me. Calm things down before I decided whether I wanted them calm. It looked helpful from the outside. But it wasn't. It was ownership in a nice shirt. I let that sit there. She wrapped Max's leash once around her hand. So thank you for standing there and not taking over. I was mostly holding coffee and trying not to look like a mailbox thief. You were there, she said. That mattered. We walked another few yards. A sprinkler ticked across someone's lawn. A delivery truck groaned at the end of the street. Claire stopped near the big oak by Mrs. Goldberg's house and turned to me. I don't need you to rescue me from my past, she said. I know. But I also don't want to pretend I dislike how it feels when you stand beside me. There it was again, that little opening between fear and whatever came after it. This time I did not hide behind a joke. I like you, Claire. Her eyes stayed on mine. I like the green door, I said. I like the way you made this whole street feel less asleep in about 3 days. I like that you ask direct questions and actually want the answers. I like your impossible dog. I like the way you call me out when I'm trying to make fear look polite. Max tugged toward a squirrel, and Claire pulled him back without looking away from me. And yes, I said, I like looking at you. But it's not just that you're pretty. You make my life feel open. I didn't realize how closed it had gotten until you showed up next door with 12 boxes, a green door, and a dog who commits property crimes. Claire's mouth softened. She stepped a little closer. Then Mrs. Goldberg's front door flew open. Max, she called, waving like she had just spotted a celebrity. Who is the handsomest boy on the block? Max lost his entire mind. The moment broke so hard Claire and I both laughed. Max dragged her toward Mrs. Goldberg, who appeared with a biscuit she absolutely had ready in advance. Saved by the neighbor watch, Claire said under her breath. Feels like Max planned it. He's manipulative. He has range. After Mrs. Goldberg finished praising him like he had won a scholarship, we walked back to Claire's house. The box was still sitting on her porch where she had left it. Inside, her kitchen smelled like coffee and fresh paint. She set the box on the table and stared at it. You don't have to open it now, I said. I know. She pulled out a chair. That's why I'm opening it now. Inside were folders from the wedding, venue details, catering notes, a neat stack of receipts clipped together. Then an engagement photo in a silver frame, wrapped in tissue. Claire held it for a long moment. In the picture, she looked beautiful but not like herself. Her smile was perfect. Her posture was perfect. Nathan stood beside her with one hand at her waist. Both of them posed in front of some garden wall. "She looks exhausted," Claire said quietly. I leaned against the counter. "She looks like she's trying hard." "Yeah." Claire set the frame down. "I used to think leaving meant I failed." I waited. She looked at the photo again. "Now I think staying would have been the failure." I nodded. "I think you're right." At the bottom of the box was a cream-colored envelope with her name written in clean block letters. Claire opened it, read 3 lines, and her face went flat. "What does it say?" I asked. "Nothing new." She folded the note once, then dropped it straight into the trash. No big speech. No dramatic goodbye. Just paper hitting the bottom of the bin. Then she picked up the box, carried it to the garage, and came back without it. The kitchen felt lighter when she returned. Claire stood by the table, hands on the back of a chair, looking at me like some quiet decision had finished forming. And this time she looked done being careful. Back in Claire's kitchen, the box was gone. That should not have changed the room as much as it did. Same table, same coffee mugs, same half-painted cabinet door leaning against the wall because Claire had started 3 projects at once and refused to call that a problem. Max had collapsed in a sunbeam by the back door. His legs stretched out like he had carried the entire morning on his own back. But the room felt different. Claire stood by the table, one hand on the chair, looking at me with that steady expression that always made it harder to hide. "I don't want to be careful right now," she said. My heart kicked once, hard. I had imagined a lot of things since she moved in next door. More than I wanted to admit. I had imagined asking her to dinner. I had imagined her sitting on my porch. I had imagined what it would be like if she stopped teasing me long enough to step closer. But when the moment actually arrived, I did what I always did. I checked the edges. "Are you sure?" Claire's mouth lifted a little. "I like that you asked." I stood still. "Yes, Jake," she said. "I'm sure." So I crossed the kitchen. Slowly at first. Not because I did not want to. Because I wanted to too much and I did not want my want to feel like pressure. Claire did not move away. She looked up at me, calm but not casual. And when I touched her face, she leaned into my hand like she had already decided. I kissed her softly, carefully, for about 3 seconds. Then Claire's hand slid to the back of my neck, and careful turned into certain. It was not rushed. It was not messy or dramatic. It was just real. Her fingers in my hair, my hand at her waist, the quiet kitchen, Max giving one sleepy huff from the floor, like he approved but did not want to be involved. When we finally pulled back, Claire looked at me for a second, then said, "Much better than staring." I laughed against her shoulder. "That's a low bar. Not as low as you think. You're a very committed starer." "I'm working on it." "No," she said, smiling. "You're not." She kissed me once more, quick and warm, then stepped back like we still had a whole morning to live through. That was what surprised me. We did not suddenly become 2 people making big speeches in a kitchen. We made coffee. She asked me to help hang a print in the hallway. I held it against the wall while she stood back with one eye narrowed. "Left," she said. I moved it left. 2 left. I moved it back. Now it looks insecure. It's a framed print, Claire. It has energy. I looked over my shoulder. "Does all your furniture have emotional problems?" "Only the pieces I respect." By noon, the print was hung, the coffee was cold, and Max had stolen one of my socks from my shoe by the door. Nothing was defined. Nothing was announced. But something had shifted into place, and for once I did not feel the need to name it before I trusted it. Before I left, I asked her to dinner properly. "Like a date?" she asked. "Yes. With shoes and everything?" "Preferably." She leaned against the doorframe, trying not to smile too hard. "Then yes." 2 nights later, I drove us downtown to a small Mexican restaurant with uneven tables and the best chicken enchiladas I had ever had. Claire wore a red sundress, and when she came down her front steps, I forgot whatever normal sentence I had prepared. She caught me immediately. "If you want to look," she said, "you can still ask." I opened the passenger door. "Claire, may I look?" She turned once, slow enough to be trouble, then laughed and got in the car. After that, life did not turn into some perfect movie. That was the best part. It turned into normal days that started carrying more weight. We had dinner on porches. We walked Max after work, and he betrayed both households equally, depending on who had better snacks. Claire started keeping coffee creamer in my fridge. I fixed the sticking window in her guest room and got paint on my elbow. She helped me choose a new rug for my living room, then told me my old one looked like it had given up during a tax audit. Some mornings, I found her mug by my sink. Some evenings, her sweater stayed over the back of my chair. Max learned my gate latch was unreliable and used that information against me. The fence between our yards stopped feeling like a boundary and started feeling like a suggestion. Claire's house became hers in all the ways that mattered. The green door, the string lights, books finally on shelves instead of stacked in defensive towers. Max's toys in every room. But somehow my house changed too. There was more noise, more food in the fridge, more reasons to leave work on time. Dog hair on the couch, which I complained about while secretly liking that it meant he had been there. And I changed. Not all at once. Claire did not burst into my life and fix me like I was a broken cabinet hinge. She just kept showing up, kept asking direct questions, kept laughing when I overthought things, kept reminding me that care and fear could look almost the same if you did not pay attention. A year after the night we hung those string lights, I stood in her kitchen while she tried to make Max wear a raincoat and he behaved like the fabric had personally insulted him. I said, "This is stupid. The raincoat." "No." I looked around her kitchen. Us walking back and forth between two houses like we don't already live together. Claire went still, one hand on Max's collar. I swallowed. "Move in with me, or I move in here, or we figure out whatever version makes sense. I just know I'm tired of pretending the fence is doing anything." Her face softened slowly. "Yes," she said. I blinked. "Yes, yes, on one condition." "Name it." "We keep the green door." I smiled. "Your green door." She stepped closer and hooked her fingers through mine. "Our green door." So I sold my house to a young couple with a baby on the way and officially moved next door. Mrs. Goldberg told me it was the most romantic real estate decision she had ever witnessed, then asked if she could have my old birdbath. I proposed under the same string lights Claire and I had hung together, with Max wearing a ridiculous bow tie and looking deeply burdened by love. Claire cried for about 4 seconds, then laughed, then said yes before I could finish the speech I had practiced in the car. We got married in the backyard, under those lights, with friends, family, folding chairs, and Max walking down the aisle like he owned the place. Claire's green door was behind us. My old quiet life was not gone exactly. It was still there somewhere, but it had windows now. It had music from the kitchen, muddy paw prints, Claire's books, her laugh, her questions, and mornings I actually wanted to wake up for. She did not replace my quiet life. She opened it. Years later, I still catch myself looking at her. On the porch, in the kitchen, by that green door, holding coffee, talking to Max like he has disappointed her professionally. And every time she catches me, Claire raises one eyebrow and says, "If you want to look, just ask." So now I do, and she always lets me.